That's a bit dramatic. I'm just going to talk about some less talked about topics. Like, let's see. It's a good idea of how to move forward with your individual situations. So when you're out and about, sometimes there's things that you would think about if you have nothing to do. Well, we'll go into details. Next, we'll talk about Golden Week, which is a number of holidays in April and May in Japan. It's kind of a big deal. It's got a big deal name, Golden Week. Sounds important. And then we're going to talk about Ainu and Ryukyu, which are two native groups in Japan that I think don't get a ton of like media, pop culture coverage, but they're very interesting. So starting out with medication, as I said before, and we talked about, there are many common medications and over-the-counter drugs in the United States that are legal in Japan. So the ones that are allowed, things like Tylenol, Advil, your kind of regular everyday over-the-counter medicines, they just have limits to how much you can bring. So usually a 1 month supply or 24 tablets. And depending on the category, some of them might be 2 month supply. You're usually not going for that long, so it's not too hard to keep below that supply. And they're all generally just for personal use, not like to bring to sell or give to other people. Let's see. The kind of illegal drugs and medications that you can't bring, that's anything with CBD, I believe THC would be more specific. CBD, they're starting to kind of like allow, but either way, you kind of want to avoid everything because you never know how strict they want to be with that. And they are very strict about it if you are caught with anything with THC. So CBD is, it's in the neighborhood, so you kind of don't want to mess with that. Anything with amphetamines, anything with pseudoephedrine, and other stimulants. So these are typically medications you'd have for like depression, ADHD, pain, congestion, allergies, cold medicine as well. So if you have Tylenol, that's fine. If you have like Tylenol, cold and flu, that they'll either ask you to throw it away or you'll have like some other penalties or punishment. So go into more detail on that. I did find out that Benadryl is okay. I know we had that question specifically before because it's for allergies and allergic reaction. So that is okay, and it should be a 2 month supply is fine. Also, injectables like EpiPens, they have to be what's the exact wording here?
I was going to say in
Pre-filled.
the original prescription box, probably.
Yeah, well, pre-filled or self-injection kits. So I guess the whole box would be
Right, because it has the label on it too. So that's what I was saying. I was going to bring that anyway.
yeah. So like I guess if you just have like a syringe and a vial, that doesn't fly.
Right.
Yeah, which would be some people have that, but it seems like an old-fashioned movie or something. Yeah. Okay, let's see if I have any other notes.
Yeah, with the bottle and the syringe.
Let's see. Oh, so this link here at the bottom is the Japanese government website, but their information is really vague.
It was very hard to find anything on that website.
Yeah, so I put together a document that has basically this same thing with more, there you go, with more detail for each point, and then also other links that are kind of more helpful. One is a list of just every like ingredient that isn't allowed, and then it gives you a category of how that is classified. So you can see things that are completely banned, things that are just controlled, and things that you just need permission to get. So like, for instance, I believe for ADHD, like Adderall isn't allowed, but Vyvanse you can get with a form that you fill out beforehand. And then some other ADHD medication alternatives are fine up to like the 1 month amount. So if you have anything that you need to take, I recommend doing this research soon, just in case you might need to look for alternatives with your doctor. or just a plan for everything. Oh, another document that I include in the other PDF is a list of the things that you can bring in that are like controlled, how much you can bring in. And it usually tells you like in the grams and milliliters, so you don't have to worry about too much, like if this amount is too much or anything like that. That would be helpful. And just again, even if it's something that is like a valid prescription in the United States, if it's not allowed, if it's banned, if it's illegal, it's absolutely not going to get through. So you will face like fines or what would it be like, refusal of entry and stuff like that. So definitely take this one seriously. If you have anything they need to bring in, do your homework ahead of time to figure out any alternatives and stuff like that. Or if you need to fill out the forms, which might take a little time because Japanese forms are just shocking to look at. There's so much on the page. And sometimes it can be hard to find the exact like instructions for it in English and everything. I would say, the forms that I provide, they have like, the chemical names of every ingredient that is of relevance, but I also recommend if you see something that you might think is like on the edge or you're not sure, you can usually find information online of someone asking about that specifically and maybe dig into more detail there. If it's not something that's like obvious from the list and the explanation. I think like Reddit is good. If you just search like, is this allowed in Japan? Reddit, that usually gives you a thread of people who like 6 years ago figured it out. Yeah.
I know sometimes, especially as it gets into like pollen season here, sometimes on certain days, set us off.
Mm.
And I know Claritin, they won't- but I know that, medicines available in Japan that are similar to Claritin.
Mhm.
And I got like a whole list of things, all in Japanese. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a picture with me
Mhm.
of what I know, something that looks good.
Yeah.
And just be like, all right, this is the right section, let's find it.
Mhm.
And then I'll just get something there.
From what I saw, and things could have changed, or it could have been incorrect, but I think Claritin is fine, but Claritin D has a stronger ingredient that isn't allowed.
That would be the decongesting component, which might have the pseudoephedrine.
Yeah, I think so.
So that would make sense.
So yeah, if you think like I said, like it's kind of tricky with like Tylenol is fine, cold and flu, or like Tylenol severe cold and flu isn't allowed. The same thing with like anything for sinuses cannot be allowed. So Benadryl is there. I believe I also saw Benadryl is sold in Japan as a sleep aid, so you could find it under the name Drewell, Drewell, and it's more expensive there as well because it's not for allergies, so it's kind of more specialized for medicated sleep aid. And I'm sure you already know if you travel with an EpiPen, but just to check airline policy on their, how much you can carry where. For that, I'm not familiar with that, but they are allowed in Japan. Okay, I think that's everything. Are there any questions for this? Just off the bat. Okay, if you think of anything, let me know because we can Google it together. Okay, so moving on from medication, some tips while you're out and about. I have this in kind of two sections. So the first one is for packing and souvenirs. And I put this together because when you're planning for packing, you probably should plan to bring back some souvenirs. I think that's probably the thing that people get most excited or sometimes most worried about when going to Japan is what do I have to bring back? Like what's the must-haves? I promised everybody in my life that I'm going to bring them something, and what do I bring? So to talk about that a little bit, souvenirs can be a great gift for your family and friends, and really nice to have as memories from your trip. When you find something that's just perfect, but they could take up a lot of space and add up quick. So you have to plan ahead for that. I would recommend, just personally, having some kind of expandable luggage. So whatever you are planning to take, if it has, that extra compartment that unzips and gives you a bit more space, That can be really helpful, or also a collapsible kind of folding carry-on. On my last trip, I took one that turned into like a fairly sized duffel bag. Like I would say probably enough to fit like all these blue books here, like a good, maybe up to like 24 inches by like 10 and 10. So that fit a lot of stuff inside, good for like all the souvenirs I was bringing back and more. And then when it collapses, it goes down to probably something around this big, like just a few inches. So not too massive. And then I just stick that in the backpack. And then when I need more space, pull that out and keep all the souvenirs there too, especially if you're starting to get things that are, a little bit more delicate. You don't want to shove that in with all your clothes that you might be throwing around. So that's just my recommendation, but you can kind of figure out your own accommodations. Just keep that in mind that I find it helpful to have separation for the souvenirs just in case you start getting anything, a little bit more expensive, a little more delicate. A lot of times you can also get things kind of wrapped at the souvenir shop. So you don't have to worry about any wrapping here. They'll just do it for you really quickly. And if you're going for that, I like to put it separately too, just so nothing starts ripping and tearing. You can just treat that whole bag gently. So let's see. Rolling clothes and packing cubes, that's just kind of general tips for packing to go there and to come back. If you roll your clothes, you can kind of save a little bit of space vertically, and kind of it gets down smaller and find little areas and fill all the hollows in your suitcase. So that's helpful. And then packing cubes, I think it's really helpful to stay organized when you're packing for a longer trip like this. And I think packing cubes help just keep everything in its place, because once things start just 2 days in and you start pulling out for just the right pair of pants or something, then it all gets messy. So packing cubes help from my experience. And if you do it really nicely, you get complimented at the airport. I've had a TSA agent be like, "That's the best one I've seen all day." So I felt proud of that one. Let's see. So going on to souvenirs, I'm sure just another note on packing. In the future traveler meetings, I think we'll talk about packing more and have a practice run. So we've got some time to play around with that. So with souvenirs, there is a huge range of items for just any interest you can imagine. So if they're into games, if they're into history, and they're into anime, art, music, things like that, Japan has something for everybody. But that also means that, if you're telling people you're going on a trip, they're going to start giving you a whole laundry list of things to do, things to bring. So you can find it, you just kind of have to know where to look. So I would say one nice place to look for things that you might not expect, like not exactly a gift shop, is at shrines. They usually have things like charms. That is a nice little memento, and they're usually quite small. Shopping streets, so there are covered streets in like downtown areas of Japan, and they're just shops and restaurants all the way down. And that's kind of the more, I would say, like less touristy, like it's less international visitors and it's more local people shopping. So you might be able to find the same thing you'd find in the gift shops, but for a lot less money, because it's just what a local would buy. So I think those are really nice. And the shopping streets are usually a kind of center point of the town. So they'll be designed kind of special just for that area. No two are the same. And it's really nice. If you have bad weather or something, they're covered on the top. So you're walking down a city street, but you don't have to worry about the sun, the wind, the rain. It's a really nice shopping experience. Landmarks. So when you're going to larger temples and shrines, even museums will have some gift shops. And sometimes kind of like strangely branded stuff. So you might find just a random like Hello Kitty X Tokyo Tower or something like that. So if you just have a character in mind that you like, someone you're buying for likes, it's good to keep an eye out for like those landmark gift shops, just in case you find like the perfect. There's even like anime collaborations. So it'll be like Spy Family in Sky Tree or something like that. which is really nice to get something they're usually limited run as well. So you can find something that's really unique there that you won't be able to find anywhere else in Japan if you're not at that very spot. And tourist spots, I guess all those other ones kind of encapsulate that. But these are great places to look. I would also say like some shopping malls, but those can be a little bit harder to get to on a limited time. I think a really good one is
Are there many shopping malls within the city? Or are they all located towards the outers?
within the city, you can find it. It just won't exactly look like a mall you'd expect here. So they're usually like in the higher end areas. I know I went to a Godzilla themed store where they have like just everything Godzilla, books, maps, like art books from all the decades of movies and everything, and like a life size, not life size, a human size Godzilla, life size I think to the costume that they would wear in the old movies. In the shops, like good for pictures and everything. There's Pokemon centers in a lot of malls, so I think there's
Life size
there's
costumes be foldable easily.
oh, not a Godzilla one. There is a life-size Mewtwo in I think the Shibuya
Life-size Mewtwo.
or Shinjuku.
Halloween is shortly
Yes,
after we get
it's
back.
floating in fluid.
Yeah, if you can run fast enough, you could probably get that.
The what?
In the vat of fluid,
Yeah, he's floating in a vat of
bubbling
yeah.
something.
So that one's really cool. So Pokemon centers are a good one, and the big cities will usually have them. So I know Tokyo has 2 or 3, Hiroshima has 1, Osaka should have one as well. So there's a good tourist stop for use the Pokemon centers, and they'll have shelves like these bookshelves of just every single Pokemon, like 1 through whatever they're on now, like 1,000 something. So you can find the right plushie or keychain for you. So those are really nice. I'm glad I remembered that one. Oh, before this, sorry. I also saw under Tokyo Skytree is a Ghibli shop that has like
Ghibli.
little things for every
Tokyo.
single movie.
Kelly, that's for you.
I need a Totoro from.
Yeah, they have all of that. Totoro and like every Ghibli movie, they'll have something. They've got like playing cards, puzzles, art books. It's really nice. And that's
Didn't-
right behind
Didn't Acker go there
us.
during spring break?
He was in Tokyo.
I know. I think she went to the Ghibli store because she was at the Skytree.
I'm not sure. I know that she sought out the Hello Kitty shrine. There's a shrine.
There's a cat shrine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not Hello Kitty.
It was just the cat shrine.
Ah,
But it's yeah,
The cat
it's
temple.
one of those like little hidden things that you have to kind of find.
That's amazing.
The cat, like hundreds of cats. The cat shrine.
So Skytree is a good spot for that, I guess, because a lot of tourists go, but they have like, when I went, it was during Christmas, so they had a Christmas market too. But they won't have that obviously in the summer, but they might have like summer food stalls, things like that, because they have a big open area. They have like an anime otaku area in there. They have their gift shop with a lot of like specialized stuff. They also have one, I think, at the top, which is cool. And then there's also the Ghibli Museum there. Ghibli. I'm trying to think. Oh, another good spot in Tokyo is in Asakusa, which is on the plan to go. You'll see it. It's the one with the giant red paper lantern.
Mhm.
And that has a whole street kind of between the gate and the temple. It's all shopping there, and they have everything. That's where I got a lot of my souvenir shopping done. The one thing I will note is that a lot of these places are in Tokyo. So that's the beginning of the trip. So you kind of have to plan everything you get there, you're going to have to carry around the whole time. So just be smart about it. And I think that's another reason I recommend the bag, to have it all separate, keep it all together. And you don't have to worry about having to reorganize everything as soon as you land, day 2, and you're starting to get stressed about that. Yeah, I think you can find a lot of good stuff outside of Tokyo, but obviously for all the travelers that come in, that is like the go-to spot for getting souvenirs for the most part. I think Miyajima in Hiroshima is also really good for that, because they deal with people just coming in and out one day. So a lot of nice smaller souvenirs and good quality stuff. Let's see. Oh, and obviously I would recommend having a plan. So, having a list of things that you want to be sure you want to get and how many of them. So if you're like, oh, I definitely want some chopsticks, think before you get to the store how many you want to get. Because as soon as you get there, you realize it's lines, it's crowds, you have to be rubbing shoulders to get to the specific pair that you want. So just to have that list and have a plan of how many you want will help a lot. And not having to like, oh, you paid, you forgot one, go back in line and wait, 30 more minutes, something like that. Plan definitely helps. I didn't have much to plan. last
I
time.
don't think I've ever had a souvenir plan. I just
Yeah.
like, oh, I see that, I like it. I'm gonna buy.
Yeah.
I've never had to actually
I guess that's fair. I think
plan out
I
a
just
souvenir.
promised a lot of people I would get something,
Okay.
and then didn't think too
We
far.
also have to make sure that we're all, like, I do the patches, she does postcards, we all do magnets, like.
Yeah.
You see a patch, you have to be like, and that way I can just go right
Right,
there.
yeah.
That's what it is.
I think I definitely saw some.
That's basically what we do is like we have like
You have your niche.
we have our little things that we collect. My daughter's like always on the lookout for music boxes.
Mhm.
While I'm looking out for a postcard in every single place because sometimes I will send it while I'm there.
Yeah.
Like if my sister didn't travel with me, I was like, wish you were here. She hates me when I come back. I was like, yeah, I know. I wish I was there too. but yeah, it's like other than those niche things, I've never actually had a plan.
Mhm.
So definitely have a plan.
I do for the first time this year. I have a list of everyone who's getting chopsticks.
Right, yeah. I think that's the thing. It's like when I think of Japan, I think of like a few little things that are good for just everybody, so they don't feel left out. And
And easy.
yeah, definitely.
Save the money and buy this.
Uh, And obviously, yeah, keep an eye out and an open mind because you might get all your shopping done and then realize that's the cutest thing I've ever seen. I need to buy it right now. So just keep an eye out. Don't be too. Even if you have a plan, don't focus in too much on it, and have fun because there's a lot of cool stuff you can find. And I want to give some examples. That would have been weird. Of kind of the things that are most easy to find in Japan. If you don't have a specific thing in mind for you or for somebody, these are good to fall back on. So we've got some chopsticks here. You can find them in sets of like individual as in a pair, not just one of them. Yeah, or up to 5 or more. Sometimes there's 2 sets. Postcards, you'll see a lot, and they'll have either designs like this, which are, I believe it's called ukiyo. These are wood print blocks. So a lot of them might be based like off the original block print. So it's not like just a reproduction. Some of them might be as well. And nice scenery and sakura stuff as well, like photorealistic things and other paintings. On the right there is stationery. So Japan has a lot of like cute and really nice quality stationery. So if somebody is really into pens, mechanical pencils, they have like crazy ones that I couldn't believe that load and erase in weird ways. Cool like collectible erasers, notebooks, and things like that, stickers, sticky notes, everything that you can imagine. Stationery
It's your
is pretty big
handkerchief,
in
Dee.
Japan.
The band.
No, the handkerchiefs.
Oh yeah, so handkerchiefs in the middle. You can kind of get them in different sizes too. So there's, it'll usually just be like the fabric, but there's handkerchiefs which are probably not too big, but you can also get, stylized fabric that's meant for like packing bentos and stuff like that, and you can get that larger if you want more. Just to enjoy the design more on a larger scale.
How about pearls?
Pearl, like loose pearls or pearl jewelry.
I guess just pearls. The question in
Hmm.
the chat, pearls.
I don't know if I noticed pearls, but I wasn't really looking for jewelry. I think Miyajima might be a good place for that because I know they
Some-
farm a lot of
Somewhere
oyster.
closer to the coast where they're actually looking.
Mhm.
Oh, pearl jewelry.
Jewelry. Okay,
So Miyajima maybe,
I think that would be a good place to
or
look.
Hiroshima.
Yeah. I think Hiroshima might have it as well. Tokyo could, but then you kind of have to just look for a very specific spot, like going out of your way to find it.
Okay.
I don't think that would be so much like a Tokyo specialty or anything that they promote. Pearl.
Yes,
Well, I'll have to
pearls.
keep an eye out for some pearls.
Yeah, well,
That'd be
well,
nice.
she's coming with us, so
Shout it out if you see it.
yes, we've got somebody looking for pearls. So if you see pearls while we're in Japan, let us know, because the other Kelly is looking for pearls. We've got two Kellys on the trip.
And the last thing here, oh wait, not the last thing. First, fans. You can usually find those, in the more touristy areas, and it might even be helpful just to get it on the trip because it's going to be hot and humid. So that's a good idea just to pick up. Or you could get the electric ones or the non-folding ones, whatever your style is. I'm a little worried about the non-folding ones because they're kind of maybe 18 inches long.
Yeah.
And they don't fold. They're made of like paper and wood, so it's just a little bit worrying unless you have a good plan on where you're going to keep that so it doesn't break. And then there's things like ceramics, which you know your own level of clumsiness, how much you want to invest in that and bring back. But you can see they have a lot of great designs that look really nice.
We have Kelly looking for teapots. Was it you? Or is it you looking for teapots?
I actually just wrote it down.
My tea enthusiasts.
So
Oh yeah.
You
it's
too?
just like a rabbit hole, like
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been taking tea lessons for 3 years and I'm still trying to wrap my head around all the different kinds of tea you can find.
Oh,
You're looking for.
I just want like an individual tea set.
Steeped tea to make tea. It's not the same
tea
as,
itself.
it's not the whisking type.
No,
You
I don't
just
want the
put it in
tea
hot
itself.
water.
It's with packing and everything else, I am perfectly willing to drink as much of it as I can consume possibly while I'm there without floating away.
But it's like a totally different type of how you make it.
No, and the thing is just not to bring back. I think that that's one of the areas where if I'm going to be maintaining space for other things. My mom has made a special request for something and just a few other things like that. I'm going to
Tea.
not worry about
Mhm.
tea as much as something else.
If you need really good Japanese tea, I know how you can get some here.
A note on the teapots. I know one of my friends that went with me recently was looking for it the entire time, and they're just a little bit more difficult to find because if you go to the usual like shop areas, you'll see a lot of stuff for like sake, the little ramekins and the little
Uh-huh.
cups, and tea is just not at the forefront. But for that, I would recommend probably going into like the shopping street area where just people living in the city might buy their teapots, and then that's probably a better bet than.
So
somewhere
ask
that
a
sells.
local.
Yeah, I think going into the local spots will
That's the
definitely help.
thing too, though, because I tend to go with the more authentic. Anyway,
Yeah.
and if it's
Mhm.
going to be in a tourist shop, then I'm like, no.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I go and I see someone who is a local who's actually that's the beer stand I got it from a flea market in Rottenburg.
Right.
Found two that were perfect and they spoke to me. I was like, I have to have this one. Sorry, it's
Mhm.
just mine now.
Yeah.
Just-
I think that's good because there is like a lot of focus in Japan on getting something just for daily use that is of good quality and even like visually pleasing. So plates like that you can just find like you could find them at a Daiso and they'd be 100 yen, but they'd be like the mass-produced kind. And then if you go, one street over onto the shopping street where there isn't a Daiso, you'll see. And Daiso is like the Japanese dollar store kind of thing. You go to a small business kind of shop and they have locally sourced things from artists all over the region, and you'll see stuff more like that, like unique pieces. So I would recommend that.
Okay.
Let me see other popular things to bring. So we've got all of these. Also, snacks are good. There's a lot of snacks, and that's a big thing in the airports. Is they'll have a snack shop where you can kind of get the same thing that I got for this class. Is you can get those in like any amount that you want. Sizes from like just 10 to up to 50. You can get those at airports and train stations. So keep an eye out there if you want to bring back some snacks.
Would they be cheaper at the airport and the train station or like the convenience store?
You could probably find some at convenience stores in areas that like specialize in certain things. For instance, in Miyajima, they'll have some kind of like maple leaf shaped ones filled with all kind of flavors. Yeah, I think like at the source, somewhere like that would be cheaper.
Mhm.
And then probably the airport has a markup, but I didn't think it was too bad because you usually get, there's small snacks, but you get, up to 30 or 50 in the box. So then you're not, yeah, the quantity is usually good for the price.
If you, anything, like, I bought a bag of cookies this big for him, and they were gone within an hour. Is you're walking the along, so
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that's another point actually, it's just the regular snacks, because obviously they have different snacks there in their convenience stores and stuff. So try them out, and if you see one that you really like, bring back a whole ton of it. You can, buy the larger bags. Usually if they sell it at the convenience store, a grocery store will have a bigger version too. If you find anything that you really like. There's also toys. A toy shop in Japan is a sensory overload to go into. But I would recommend it if you just spot one and want to pop in, because you can get like, for instance, like a Pokemon card, but they're all in Japanese instead of English. That's just a cool little something. They're usually like
Or the Funko
300
Pops.
yen. Yeah, things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, a toy shop if you get the chance. Yeah.
So when you say something like, oh, we're passing by the store and if you're interested in going in or whatever, are we gonna have that kind of time to kind of spontaneously be like, ooh, store? Go
There
now?
will be some time, yes,
Okay.
on certain days.
Unless
And
we're
we
going-
do have that entire day in Tokyo. Yeah. So when we will have at least, normally whenever we do have any free time at all, they'll give us about an hour, 2 hours. It's like, okay, this is where we're meeting.
Okay.
You guys have until this time, be back here at this time. And it's usually at a shopping district or somewhere where we can just go and get lost and not get lost, but go and do our own things as in our groups.
Get lost within your.
Yes. Within that time period. So go and explore. So we will, like, whenever there's a break in the schedule, it's like explore Tokyo on your own or explore this. They usually give us some free time, at least an hour or two,
Okay.
to go and explore a certain area. So
So that leads me to another question, because I am still determined to go ahead and get some yen. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. When Christy went over spring break, I asked her how hard was it to find. She only was in Tokyo.
Mhm.
So she didn't go where we're going. She said in Tokyo, it was not hard finding a place for a card. That they did bring cash, but it was not the end all be all that I was kind of like predicting.
Yeah, I think recently they've definitely stepped up their card usage, like the small format card readers. So you can definitely use those in the more touristy areas. But once you get kind of out of there a little bit, I think any of the cities we're going to should be fine. Maybe Hakone is like a little bit too small to have card for everything.
the national park area.
Yeah,
Pretty much told my husband that if it will take card, using card, the rest of it will say it'll be
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's good. Yeah, I think you can probably. I would say if your impression is that it like is going to be 100% cash, you can kind of scale that back a little bit. There are cards, like obviously the convenience stores and places like that will do cards. Any of the like gift shops that we talked about will have a thing for cards. Even temples and stuff like that, temples and shrines, even though they've been there for 800, 1,000 years, whatever, will take your Visa and your MasterCard. But yeah, cash is still good to have just in case. Yeah.
So when we're traveling, and so we have chaperones, right?
Yeah.
We have to stay with the chaperone, right? When we're like going out to shop.
You will have to be with somebody.
Okay.
You cannot go wandering off on your own.
Okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Be scared. I'd be like, I don't know.
You are free to partner up with any of the adults or any of the other students when we are traveling. You are not allowed to go off on your own. Okay.
Okay.
That is the one thing. You could do whatever you want within a reasonable amount or restrictions, but you're never ever allowed to go off on your own. Okay,
Even as an
That
adult,
is-
I don't wanna go out on my own.
What?
Even As
Exactly.
an adult, I don't want to go out on my own.
Yes.
It can be really easy to get lost,
Ow.
especially in Tokyo. It's all a gray city, at ground level. So once you look around, it's hard to find where you're at.
Because
So
everything
definitely.
is really high.
Mhm.
There's
Uh,
lots of skyscrapers in Tokyo,
Ton.
and they're tall.
Let's see.
Okay.
One more point on souvenirs is there's also good cosmetics that you can get. They usually have like better access to like Chinese and Korean cosmetics as well. So I would say if that's what you're into, keep an eye out in Japan as well. And that might be more in the like regular grocery stores, drugstores, but those are usually in pretty easy to reach areas from like a tourist area. Even if you're like in the Hiroshima Peace Park, there's probably a cosmetic store like within a 5 or 10 minute walk away. So it's not so far out that you have to like make a special trip for it. You can also find them in places like a variety store, which is it's called Don Quixote.
Mm.
They have the like a weird little penguin mascot. Sometimes he's wearing a Christmas hat. He's got all kinds of headwear. But that little penguin from Don Quixote, and it's like a really noticeable store. It's like the loudest sign you've ever seen.
Can you enunciate the name of it again?
Don Quixote,
Is
like
it donkey or is it dumb?
Done.
So
Done.
Yeah.
So it's actually the title of the book, but
Yes.
it's a donkey,
well, it's got a penguin.
penguin.
A
Yeah.
penguin, not a donkey.
But they do call it donkey, but that's only the shortened name because it's Don Quixote. They just call it donkey. But a donkey. isn't
Okay, I
called
just need
donkey.
a picture of the sign of
Yeah,
that. then.
I'll find that.
Isn't it like red and yellow all over?
Yeah, it's a really loud building. Like there's just yellow signs everywhere. The biggest lettering, like size 1 million lettering.
Neon.
Yeah, they have them, and they're usually in really obvious areas. Like they're in Akihabara, in Tokyo, in Osaka. It's in Dotonbori. So they're right where you are,
That's funny.
which is nice. And those have like everything, which is really good for gift shopping. You can find like if you suddenly need a belt or shoes or socks, you can get that there. You can get cosmetics, like groceries, medicine, everything. That's a really good store. It's just a bit hectic in there because there's usually like 8 floors and it's all just there. But that's a fun experience as well. But that's souvenirs.
I don't even wear makeup, I'm intrigued.
You never know what some tips on walking about. We've mentioned this one before, but bringing your own slippers or like a pair of socks. If you're going to go like open toe shoes, I would recommend carrying like a pair of socks, just in case you have to put on like the communal slippers. You never know what somebody's situation is with their feet. So that would be a good idea to bring along. And in terms of bringing your own slippers, I think the usual size of the slippers is like a size 9 men's, so like 10.5 women's. That's as big as they go though.
Oh, that's
So-
as big as it.
Yeah. So if you wear anything larger than that, you either have to kind of suffer with like, you're like scrunching 3 toes in there and just putting up with it. Or you can bring your own, but I will leave that up to your own discretion on, how much things you want to be carrying. Yeah, things like, just a pair of slip-ons, some slides, or Crocs, things like that. They wear Crocs a lot there for the easy in and out shoe. But they do have to be like clean, totally clean. Like you haven't ever worn them outside, or if you have, like you've really cleaned them up.
Indoor
They must be
shoes.
clean. Yeah, so they're indoor shoes that are like only indoor. If you're worried about like the slippers being too small, it's usually not for an extended period that you have to wear them. It'll be like from the door where you take off your shoes to the place where you're sitting to eat, or from like the entrance of the hotel, if it's like a more traditional style, just up to your room. So it's not like you'll have to be walking around the entire museum with these slippers on. But it's just something to keep in mind if you think you'll be going into that a lot, or if you are particular about like sharing shoes and stuff like that. So just something to keep in mind there. But obviously shoes can be kind of bulky, so plan ahead for that if you do want to bring something.
So when you say to bring socks for that, we can't just walk around in clean socks. It has to be with slippers.
I think that would be fine, but they would have to be like clean, so bring your best, no holes or
do they
anything.
have to be white or if they're all black?
Anything's fine.
Okay.
I found Taekwondo shoes on Amazon for students that just slip right on and off.
Yeah, I think socks is like fine in some situations. So for instance, some traditional restaurants will have you can wear your normal shoes all the way up until a certain step. And then that's like tatami, you take your shoes off, but then your table is 5 feet away. So socks is fine. You don't have to like slip on another pair of shoes for that. Yeah. Another thing is like bathroom slippers. Those are separate. They stay in the bathroom. You don't take the indoor slippers into the bathroom, and you don't take the bathroom slippers out into the indoors. And those are also communal. So socks I would recommend for that. You never know. Another point is coin lockers. I don't know how common coin lockers are around here or in other places you've traveled, but they're really helpful if you end up going on like a larger shopping trip or outing. You can kind of load up on a bunch of stuff and then put it in a locker for really cheap usually. And then you don't have to worry, it's going to be safe, it's going to be there, it's not going to get wet or stolen or anything.
Unless you lose your key.
Unless you lose your key, and then that'll be a whole thing, like finding the attendant that could open it for you or things like that. But I've seen them where the key is like on a wristband, where the key is just on a keychain. Yeah, don't lose the key. I've also seen them some where you can use like your smartphone, but usually it's like the cards, the Suica cards, the travel cards.
Mhm.
You could use that to tap in, and then that's your key to tap out when you're ready. So that can be helpful. You can't lose that. Well, if you lose that, you're in more trouble. So,
Yeah.
So you'd be more attentive to that one. You can find them in stations, in airports, shopping centers will have them. Outside of some tourist destinations, they'll just have a random thing of lockers outside, like in a garage or like just in a pay parking lot. They'll also have like some lockers like that. So that's really helpful, and they're surprisingly big. Oh, also museums will have them, so you don't have to like, if you have a backpack, you don't have to walk around with that backpack. That's really nice. There's kind of two styles, like one where you pay for just the single use. And I think like a really big one that you could fit like a full size luggage in would be like 700 yen. So you're paying like $5 or something to keep it there for, I think it's like until the end of the day, basically, until the next day rolls over or something. There's also some, I think museums are more like this, where it's just a deposit. You put in your 100 yen and that kind of locks the door. And then when you open your door key, you get your 100 yen back. So those are free, basically. You just have to have a coin. But yeah, coin lockers are really nice and helpful while you're shopping and stuff like that. Oh yeah, the prices and depend on the size and where they're located. Obviously, in a more popular area, they'll be more expensive. But I think the sizes are really good. Even if one looks like a really small cubby, I would say like, test it out and open it, because it might be a small cubby that's 3 feet deep and you can fit multiple people's like bags in there. And that's really nice. I've definitely been like shocked by how much you can get for the smallest one. And then that's like 100 yen as opposed to 700 yen. So those are really convenient. So that's coin lockers. And just one more tip on out and about. When it comes to finding restaurants and attractions, be careful about long lines. I think recently there was a viral kind of post in like Japan Twitter sphere of the line in front of the Starbucks in like a traditional area of Kyoto. And it's just a normal Starbucks. Like it has a traditional outside, but the inside is just a normal Starbucks. And everybody's waiting in a really long line to get inside, when what you really want is a picture of the outside. And if you really want coffee, Kyoto has a ton of coffee spots that are probably cheaper, probably better, and you'll have like a more authentic experience with somebody who might like want to chat to you and stuff like that. So just be aware, like if you see a long line, it doesn't always mean it's the best, especially in touristy areas. I think if you're more off in a smaller part of Japan, sometimes that can be a sign of like that is the good spot to go to in like small towns and stuff. I know I've seen like in the town that I lived, there was a regional ramen, and a lot of places will have this. We're like, oh, this is our pride and joy, our special ramen. And there was one shop that always had a long line in front at lunchtime, at dinner, all the time, a long line in front. And I went inside and it was the most normal thing I've ever had. And every other ramen shop in town served the same thing, because it's the regional specialty. It's not like their shop specialty, it's for the whole town. So the long line was really absolutely for nothing. in that case. It's just, but I would recommend like checking reviews. When it comes to reviews in Japan, like Google reviews, usually things will have some pretty good reviews, like useful reviews, but they might not be the same number scale that you're used to. So like 3 in Japan, they like keep really close to what the scale actually means. Like 3 is exactly as you'd expect.
Hmm.
They're like, yep, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a 3. And then a 4 is like, wow, this place is really nice. And then a 5 is like, they gave me $1 million when I walked in the door. Like a 5 is really rare to find. So like a good rating for a restaurant in Japan would be like a 3.4, which I think here you might be like, is it good? We might have to
Yeah.
have a backup plan or something. So, the star rating might be a little bit skewed from what you're used to. And then if you read the reviews, like the actual written reviews, sometimes you'll see why that scale pushes back a little bit. Some people might leave like 1-star reviews. I think you get it here too, but like a bad review for something that had nothing to do with like the food or the restaurant,
Mhm.
they'll be like, oh, 1 star, there wasn't enough parking out front. And it's like, there isn't any parking out front, and it's not supposed to be. 1-star review, I think I've heard like, oh, 1-star review, because when the kids get out of school, they all come to this shop to like get sodas and ice creams and stuff, and I don't like it. It's like, that's your problem, man.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's popular, but not for you.
yeah.
Just go at a different time.
So I would recommend like reading into the reviews. I think Google has a pretty good translated part, like in Google Maps.
So use Google Maps.
Google Maps is good for that. I think the other ones as well, like if you use Yelp, table log and things like that, should be good. But Google Maps will have probably, it's easier to find if you're just standing in front of a shop and you want to know if it's good, because you can just zoom in on where you are.
Because that would be good for when we have to actually go and find something to eat during lunch.
You just kind of have to look around the exact spot you are. You can't really plan out too far ahead of time. Reviews are good for that, but I would recommend reading them. It might paint a different picture than what you expect.
Or you could
Just wing
see
it.
where the wind takes you.
Yeah.
Get lost in your taste buds.
Get lost in the world of food. Stay with the group. Yeah. So hopefully that'll keep you from ending up in an overpriced long line. Sometimes the lines are really good, but I wouldn't bet on it. If it's someplace that you've kind of seen ahead of time and you've researched, and it's like the TikTok spot or something like that, then it'll have a long line and the food might actually be not overhyped. But it all depends on where you are. I know in a place like Harajuku, you might see a lot of stands for crepes, and then one crepe stand will have like the longest line. They're all making the same crepes, really. There's no secret recipe or anything. It's not the Krusty Krab, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, which one is the best. They'll all be, it's a tourist spot. They'll all be okay, and that's unless you've seen or heard that one's like especially good. Just go for the shortest line and stuff like that. Just follow your gut, follow your nose.
The nose knows.
There. So next,
Golden.
touching on Golden Week. The little carp banners are part of Children's Day, which is a holiday at the end of Golden Week. And you can see a picture at the bottom right. It's very busy during Golden Week. So Golden Week is from.
So like we're walking around and like I don't know if I saw it somewhere, but like you can't like eat and walk.
Oh yeah. So that's probably over exaggerated. I think it's pretty fine. Nobody like calls you out or anything. You don't have to worry about someone being like, that's illegal, stop.
Okay.
It's more like a cleanliness thing. Obviously, you don't want to see like food wrappers on the floor and stuff like that. So I think if you're, picking up after yourself and things like that, obviously there's a lot of tourists as well. Some of them don't know that rule, so you'll just see things like that. But you don't want to bump into shoulders with somebody who's like eating a cheeseburger and it's gonna get on your shirt or something like that. So it's just a consideration thing, but you can use your own discretion on if it's like, oh, this is too crowded to be eating, or later at night or something like that, or earlier in the morning. It's probably fine.
I was thinking maybe like when you're thirsty and you're walking.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's totally fine. I think you see that a lot as like a tip that's like, oh, definitely don't do this if you can. But like I would say don't do it on the train, really, stuff like that. But for the most part, any rule that you might have heard, like that completely don't do this in Japan, you'll probably see a Japanese person doing.
Yeah.
So just take it with a grain of salt, really. But yeah, that's a good thing for bringing that one up.
If the locals are doing it,
You're fine.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So Golden Week is the kind of longest holiday period in Japan. It starts from April 29th until May 5th. And it's a big deal because it's usually all those, it has 4 holidays within it. So we can go into that. It has Showa Day, Constitution Memorial Day, Greenery Day, and at the end, Children's Day. Showa Day is, I believe, based on the Emperor Showa's birthday. That was the emperor during World War II. Constitution Memorial Day is when the Constitution was drafted, I think, in 1946. Greenery Day is because the Emperor Showa loved nature, so they gave a public holiday for that as well. And then Children's Day is sometimes also called Boys' Day. So the last holiday we talked about with Hinamatsuri was like Girls' Day, and then a month later they get, or kind of 2 months later, they get Boys' Day. And it's the same kind of thing. It's this one's less focused on specifically boys, and it's more like a family thing. So it's a time, because there's so much vacation, for like families to spend some time together that they might not get throughout the rest of the year. And part of that is because a lot of Japanese people don't take their like vacation days from work at all, or they'll take very limited amounts. And it's like a different work culture there. But Golden Week is a week where there's already 4 days off in the week. So people just get that last day and actually take a vacation and travel around. But because of that, everybody in the country travels around. And it's a really hectic time. I would say definitely don't plan a trip to Japan during Golden Week. Or sometimes around like cherry blossom. If they line up where it's like a late
Season.
cherry blossom season into Golden Week, it's over. You won't be able to get anywhere. Everything will be booked up, and overpriced. Just a time to avoid. But yeah, so everything will be extra busy. And it's mostly domestic travel. Like people don't take the holiday to go outside. It'll be like go back to your hometown to visit your grandparents and stuff like that might be living outside of cities. So hotels, restaurants, museums, any attraction is going to be full. And without kind of prepping a month ahead of time or more with all those reservations, it's hard to go anywhere. Especially train stations and airports are going to be like as packed as they will be all year. So it's just so overwhelming to try to go during Golden Week. When I would take vacations during Golden Week, the plan for like foreigners living in Japan is usually get out of the city, because it's kind of like a flip. Everybody just goes everywhere, and you just want to be as far away from people as possible during that time, especially if you don't have like family members to visit. Well, that's another point. There's a lot of people, a lot of foreigners living in Japan just take that time to go outside of the country, because there's no point in being in there. Everything is booked up. So that's Golden Week. Oh, and every 5 to 6 years, there are more holidays that line up to make a Silver Week in September. So Golden Week is every year, but there are like holidays that don't have rigid dates and they can move around, and that's Silver Week, which is an extra. If you're planning another trip to Japan, look out for September. Make sure it's not a Silver Week, or you'll be in for the same business. Okay. And lastly, we're going to get into learning a little bit of history about these native groups. So Ainu and Ryukyu. The pictures here, these are Ainu pictures from long ago. And they're kind of in the north of Japan. You can see these there. So this is like a woman with a mouth tattoo, a man with some long, really long beard. This is a woman feeding a bear. So that's Ainu, very interesting. And then Ryukyu, which are in the far south of Japan, Okinawa. And there are more color pictures here because this has a more active population, I would say, of this group. So getting into it, the Ainu people are an indigenous ethnic group located in northern Japan that is around Hokkaido, also the northern end of like the main island of Honshu, and a bunch of little islands like that are, some of them are property of Russia, some of them are contested between Japan and Russia, but it's that far north area of Japan. And the Ainu people have been there long before there was anything called Japan or Russia or even like the Soviet Union, anything like that was the Ainu people. So they're native to that area. They have a distinct language. It doesn't sound anything like Japanese. I'm sure it's been adapted to the Japanese writing system, but with even special rules because they make such different sounds. And it's distinct in the language and culture from the Yamato people. So Yamato is what you would call like the majority ethnic group in Japan. That's a group that like started in the actual main island, the big island. So they are like most of the Japanese population. And then in the far north, you'll see very small like communities of Ainu. And that's because there were centuries of colonization, forced assimilation that made them kind of lose a lot of their language speakers, lose a lot of their traditional ceremonies and stuff like that. Some of them are like outlawed because they're built around bears, and completely altered their way of life from what it traditionally was. So there's efforts now to bring that back, but it's very diminished compared to how it existed in the past. Some cultural differences. After a certain age, Ainu men just don't shave their beard ever. So they get these really amazing bushy beards and mustaches, which you rarely see anywhere else in Japan, because they're kind of like a more clean shaven or very like cleaned up look, even going back centuries, where just a big beard wasn't allowed. There was even a point where they banned having beards because it was like a sign of like a rogue samurai would grow a long beard. So obviously they outlawed that for that reason. And then all these Ainu people that are just living their lives with beards, they have to shave or face punishment. So you can see how that kind of those changes, even like the weird laws in the past, affect these groups and their traditions. And their religion, they believe that everything in nature has a spirit, and they have a special connection to bears. There is a ceremony where the village will raise a bear cub, and then after it's gotten to a certain size, they kind of do a sacrifice where they return it to the earth, like it's giving its spirit back.
So they kill it.
Yeah, they kill it, but they raise it like their own baby. So it's kind of difficult to understand. I guess maybe if you lived on a farm, you kind of get that idea. Although farmers say like don't baby the animals and stuff like that. In this case, they do. They literally baby it and they raise it along with all the other children in there. They have their ceremony down the line. I think the connection to bears comes from that it's just such a resource when you're in the far remote mountains and in the snow. You find a bear, and that is food and clothing and tools. So obviously they have a big connection to bears. Let me see. Oh yeah, so the Ainu are one of the larger recognized kind of ethnic groups in Japan, and they are a tiny percentage of the population. So the Yamato kind of ethnic group is 98% Japanese people, and then all the other ones that are recognized make up to 2%, and Ainu is within that. So it's a very small population. But like I said, they are trying to keep their traditions and history alive now that there's less pressure on them from the government, and they've gotten protections and recognition. The Ainu. Oh, I forgot to talk. Yeah, and women will get a tattoo on their mouth from a very young age. It'll start very small, like just a dot, and then as they grow older, get larger and larger tattoos. I didn't see what the actual meaning behind that is, but it's a very unique look. And it's like, the larger it is, the more respected you are in the village, stuff like that.
So the Ainu they're from northern Japan, so like in the Upper Peninsula, like Nagasaki, up there.
Yeah, like very far north, it would be
Sapporo, maybe.
Yeah, so Hokkaido is like the really big island at the north of Japan, and then a little bit in like just the north of main Japan. So that would be places like Aomori. Aomori is just something the most north. I think that's probably where you find the most, if you can find any of them. Hokkaido would be the place to go for that. If you wanted to learn more and see like what a real village looks like and stuff like that, that's where they would have it. So Ainu are kind of hard to experience. You'd have to go to those areas. The same goes with this other group, the Ryukyu. So the Ryukyuan people are an ethnic group native to the Ryukyu Islands. It's now modern day Okinawa. So they speak their own language, Ryukyuan. It's a branch from Japanese, but it is a separate language. So it's in the same family like Spanish, Italian, and French are, but it's a different language altogether. And they can't understand each other. They have the same sounds, but they can't communicate. Obviously, most people that are Ryukyuan living in Okinawa will also speak Japanese because that's the main language. Let's see. Just a note on like the range of this. This is all the way from the southern tip of main Japan all the way to basically Taiwan. So there's a lot of islands stretching very far in the ocean, and that's where the Ryukyu group of people originally came from, and where you would go to find more like authentic representations of it, especially in Okinawa. So I think the wording on this is a bit weird, but like they share a common ancestor with the ethnic group of the mainland Japan. And the Ainu people have a different connection. So they come from a different, like their origins come from a different area of the world, probably like northern and Siberia and stuff like that, that traveled over to Japan. And then Ryukyu kind of came from mainland Asia through those islands. And that same group eventually kept going to form what is the rest of the Japanese population. But these are the group that kind of settled in the islands. And over time formed their own culture, society, language, and stuff like that. So all of those things there, language, religion, cuisine, and culture, are distinct from mainland Japan because life on those islands is so different. And to a much greater extent than the Ainu, it's still preserved and you can go and experience it. So here are the numbers. There are just in Okinawa, 1.8 million people who would identify or classified as Ryukyuan. And in the rest of Japan and the rest of the world, there's 4 million more. So those numbers are like way bigger than Ainu, but Ryukyu isn't recognized as a separate thing as distinctly as the Ainu are. They're just part of Japanese culture. It's kind of hard to make equivalencies to the United States and stuff like that. But I would recommend looking into it. It's all very interesting how they interacted. Ryukyu was originally its own kingdom in those islands that had like trade and politicking with China, with Korea, with Japan. And then through Japan's kind of colonial expansion, picked them up around like the time of samurais, kind of kept trying to invade, take them over. Eventually they succeeded. And then like in the buildup to the Empire of Japan that would lead to World War II, they got fully incorporated. So now it isn't as distinct as it was before when they were their own kingdom. But if you go there, you can see that they have a completely different vibe. They have some notable kind of cultural points that you might know. So karate comes from them, kind of adapted from Kung Fu, brought from China, and nunchucks as well were invented in Okinawa by these Ryukyuan people a long time ago. So it's really, this one has more points that you might recognize in culture, but you might not know that it's specific to Okinawa as opposed to just Japan in general. And when you're on the islands, it does feel completely separate from Japan. They have different food that you wouldn't find everywhere else. They have a drink it's alcoholic, called awamori. It's completely separate from sake. It doesn't taste the same. It doesn't smell the same. It's not made in the same way. And that goes back like a long time, thousands of years they've been making that. So if you ever get the chance, I definitely recommend going to Okinawa and also to Hokkaido. So you can see parts of Japan that are so different from the usual picture of Japan. And that's kind of on purpose because after World War II, Japan decided they would have one image for their whole country instead of kind of individual places for every area. It's harder to enforce that in the farther away areas of Hokkaido and Okinawa. So you get to see a whole different picture. And that's kind of why I wanted to call it real Japan. You get to see a Japan that people don't talk about. Even Japan doesn't talk about yourself. So that's really cool.
So have you been to Okinawa?
I have, yeah.
And you've been to Hokkaido?
I haven't been to Hokkaido yet,
Okay.
but Okinawa is very nice. And I know Hokkaido is really good. In the winter, it's insane.
Skiing.
Yeah, it's insane. They get meters of snow. But in summer, it's great. No snow and it's really nice.
Snow for Dion, summer for me.
Yeah, it's really
Did
good.
you try the awamori?
I did, yeah. It tastes kind of caramelly. It's weird because it's all just like fermented rice or distilled rice.
So it's a rice wine type
Mhm,
thing.
yeah, but they use a different rice than Japan. I think they use rice from, I think it's all made from rice from the Philippines now. They use a different mold to ferment it and stuff like that. It's good.
Mhm.
I like it. But it's hard to find outside of Okinawa.
I can
as well.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's these. I think
That's it. You got one more slide.
I went on a really big rabbit hole researching this, so I would definitely recommend looking it up if you have some time and some interest. So the end, I think that counts right?
It's
Yeah.
about right, yeah.
93 days until the trip. So it's time to get excited, and it's a long time to stay excited. So I would recommend keeping your eyes out for things that interest you. Education and entertainment. If you keep that up, I think it'll really help keep your excitement levels higher than your nervous levels. 92 now?
Yeah, as of today.
Oh, yeah, it's getting there.
You were right there.
I try to account for that, but yeah, it's getting close. Keep up your Duolingo streaks and studying, because the more that you know, the smoother and more rewarding it will be. I think usually Japanese people have a very good reaction when you try to speak Japanese. You'll get a lot of confidence. They'll be very impressed.
380 days straight.
That's amazing. Way to go.
Great.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'll be lucky if I get a 7-day streak.
I have a negative.
Huh?
30 days is high.
Yeah,
I saw one of y'all.
I can't keep a 7-day streak lately.
Yeah, but definitely keep that up, because it'll definitely help smooth out that experience. You'll be able to, recognize more things on menus and stores. You'll know which one's the exit and which one's the entrance. You'll know where the bathroom is, things like that. Just more intuitively, and it helps a lot. And if you have any questions for me, if anything pops into your mind that either you want to talk about again because we've covered it, or something new, my email is right here, me.cisneros98.
Gmail.
Definitely spelled that one wrong. It's Gmail. It's the normal website. But yeah, reach out and
Gmail.
I'll help you in any way I can. Gmail. Right, but that's everything. So thank you for your time.
Today is our last actual Japanese class. So when you get an email from me about a meeting, it is an actual travel meeting. So all of our following travel meetings will be specifically talking about traveling and things that we need to get prepped. Okay. So as of right now, I don't have one on the docket for an actual traveler meeting as of right now, mainly because come May, we get kind of swamped with end of year things, finals, SOLs, graduations, and then going into June, we've got family vacations and summer school and whatnot. Okay. Huh? So, she's AP reading. So, and I'm working summer school. So that means we will be scheduling probably a meeting towards our travel dates, mainly because we will have more information, everything from flight information to hotel information. I'll have backpacks and emergency contact information. So the one thing that I do want everybody to go in and make sure, and that I told everybody at our last meeting, is to go in and verify, make sure that your names match your passports exactly, first, middle, and last. Make sure that your your emergency contact is not traveling with you, and that they have a valid passport in case we do need to get them to Japan for any reason whatsoever. Okay, so it cannot be mom and dad who's 90 or 80 years old and don't have valid passports. Okay, so make sure you have valid passports for those emergency contacts. If you need another emergency contact added on there, send me their name and their emergency information so I can add that to our information that I will be sharing with all travelers. Okay. As of right now, I have about 30 of you in the remind. How many of you would prefer, how many of you use WhatsApp? WhatsApp? Okay. All of my travelers use WhatsApp. Like all the people that travel out of the country on a regular basis use WhatsApp. That is used basically universally all across Europe, as well as South America and parts of Asia. So we will probably be switching to the WhatsApp because it allows calling and texting. And I will probably create 2 separate groups for people that are traveling and then another group for parents. So if we do need to get information out for the students that are traveling with us, I can do that. Okay. So that way we're not getting bombarded while we're on trip by parents talking to each other. Okay. So there will be 2 separate groups in the WhatsApp for parents as well as another one for the actual travelers on the trip. So, because like I said, it will give you the ability to text, call, and video, like phone and video, voice and video calls on a Wi-Fi system. So that way, if you don't have a plan while we are abroad, you can at least connect on the Wi-Fi. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. If you suddenly get a WhatsApp notification, it's probably from me. Okay, so I'm just letting you guys know that in advance. And of course, on one of our next meetings, as I said in our last meeting, practice your packing. Make sure that you are within weight limits when it comes to your packing, because yes, you can fit every single thing in that little tiny carry-on, but is it within your weight limits for that carry-on? Okay. Or if you are checking baggage, are you within those weight limits because if you are not, you are in charge, or you are responsible for that over the limit fee.
The airlines that you presented on 2 meetings ago,
Yeah,
do we know what their standards are for like?
I do not. I didn't even want to look at it until I actually got flight
What
information.
our flight information is.
Not yet.
Hard to know exactly what.
We probably will not get flight information until next month.
I know, I'm just
So.
like, we can practice packing, but we wouldn't know exactly what.
I would go with our standard US
50 pound,
weights.
What is it?
Okay,
50 pound for a
check bag.
checked bag. I think your carry-on can be 50 pounds too, but that's too heavy to carry.
Yeah.
It's a lot to run back.
Yeah.
Yes,
Or
Okay.
to like lift over your head and stuff like that.
because you have to be able to lift it and
I
put it
knew
in
the
those.
check was 50. I didn't know the carry-on had it.
I think that depends on,
It's just size. more than anything.
Yeah,
I think for the Japanese ones, they go by kilograms, they'll be like 25 kilograms, so it's 52.6 pounds, something like that. So yeah, if you are with the Japanese one, you get a little bit of wiggle room there.
okay. So think about that as you are planning your outfits. And of course, break in those walking shoes.
No, I need to start.
Okay. Yes, definitely start breaking in those walking shoes. We don't want brand spanking new shoes that you are going to be breaking in because you will be getting blisters. Okay, so definitely break in those walking shoes. We will be walking, especially in the cities. We will be doing walking tours within the cities with the tour directors. Okay. And I have a group leader friends that just came back during their spring break trip to Japan, and they stayed in a traditional ryokan. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So they had the floor beds. the traditional floor beds, and food was amazing. So, huh? So those are just some of the things, and they did our itinerary. They did the Land of the Rising Sun. So I followed along from their airport photos until they got back. And there's like, oh, we're going there. We're going there. It's like, hotel, that's your hotel. And I was like, okay, we are gonna get to sleep in those traditional hotels where our mattresses are on the floor. Okay, so we will get that experience. So I'm looking forward to that. So those are just some things to look forward to. Hope you guys are excited. I'm sad that I won't be getting to see you next month, but we will spend a whole lot of time together in July.